Hello, welcome again to another episode in the Let People Prosper series. I hope you're having a prosperous weekend, just a wonderful day. Hopefully time with your family and just doing things that you really enjoy. Um, you know, as I've started this series, and this is episode 28 now. Thank you for watching, continue to watch. But what I've failed to realize or failed to do so far was really tell you a little bit more about me. So what I thought I'd do is tell you who I am, how I've got to where I am today, why I chose to study economics, and just go through a little bit of my life story. What I've titled, Who is Vance Ginn? Kind of throwback to Who is John Galt, right? Not that I'm compared to John Galt or anything, but I just thought that would be something, kind of a fun way to do it today. So a little bit about me, and I'll put more about this in the show notes at vanceginn.com. You can just look at the blog there, and I'll put some pictures and stuff too that throughout my life of kind of where I've been and how I got to where I'm at today. And as I've talked about before, I really believe on a number of ways, but even looking at it as an economist, thinking about it historically and even politically, that institutions really matter. And it's not just the building, brick and mortar sort of institutions, but it's really about throughout our lives, right? Is that we see the lens, we have a worldview that we have of how we see the world based on how we've grown up, and the trials and challenges and the successes that we've had really along the way. And I think those are things that I know have made me the person that I am today. And so I hope that you'll also think more about that, of how you got to where you are, and how you'll continue to succeed and improve along the way. And so kind of get this thing started, I was born November 12th, 1981 to two wonderful parents, my dad, Harold Wayne Ginn, and my mom, Melody K. Lane. And I was born in South Houston, near Hobby Airport, if you know where that's at. Lived there for a few years. My grandmother would live with us for a little while, and things of that nature. Got really close with her along the way too. But taking a quick step back, my dad, Harold, he had a pretty serious car accident whenever he was 18. So in 1972, he was leaving. He was a football player at the time at Brookshire High School, which is just west of Houston, a small little town west of Houston. And he was in a serious car accident. He was making a left-hand turn with two of his friends, and he was in the passenger seat. Remember those old trucks that used to have the little window you could flip open? That was really the frame of the window. Well, when they took the left-hand turn, a drunk driver hit them. And when they hit them, his head went into that frame and caused a traumatic brain injury. He was in a coma for several weeks with the thought that he may not even live anymore, but by the grace of God, he was able to make it out of all that. Went back to school for a while, and it was almost to where he couldn't really even remember. He had amnesia essentially from all the time before that, right? And so whenever he went back to school, he was class president. So he was sitting in his classroom. He would tell me later on, but from what other people had told him, but he was sitting there in the classroom. They called his name over the loudspeaker. He didn't even hear it, or maybe didn't even know his name at that point. But his friend said, "Hey, Harold, you're being called." And so he went to this room, and he sat at the table, and they said, "Okay, Harold, you're going to run this show." And it was for the National Honor Society. So he was also president of the National Honor Society and didn't even know anything about it, so he wasn't able to run it, but just kind of gives you an idea of who he was at that time. And so he went to Sam Houston State University, which is a university just north of Houston, for a couple years until his memory started giving away, and then he eventually had to drop out. He was a welder. He worked as a gas man for a while, and then later on he started having seizures and was diagnosed with epilepsy. And that was about the time that I was a young child, and my sister, who was a couple years younger than me, Tiffany, we both were young kids at the time, and so our dad started having seizures, and that really had an effect on us throughout that period, and left a lasting impression, as I've seen him have hundreds, maybe even thousands of seizures throughout my lifetime. But it was something that I learned from. It was an experience that I went through, that institutional structure of the family that helped me kind of be the person that I would be later on. But this also took a toll on our family life as well, as it took a toll on my mother, who was, she went to like a couple years of junior college, San Jacinto Junior College. And so she also wasn't a college graduate, but you know, she worked at a daycare for a while, and those types of places, and so it was a relatively low income household. My dad ended up being on Social Security disability, right? So not much money there either. And then my parents were divorced when I was very young. And so I lived with my mom as a single parent household, and so that also reduced the amount of income, and so that had a whole nother institutional framework of how a family system works. And my mom was a very loving mom, and I never felt like I was without anything, but you know, again, having only a single parent can cause some issues along the way. And as I was a kid, I went from kindergarten to second grade, I actually went to a school, a private school where my mom worked at the time. And so I had the opportunity to go to private school from kindergarten to second grade. And then I went to public school from third grade to sixth grade, as I lived a couple years with my grandparents up near Weatherford, Texas, in Springtown, Texas. I went to Weatherford Public School and really enjoyed that. Then moved back in with my mom for seventh grade, and tried a couple places, but it just really didn't work for me. It didn't meet my unique needs, and so we decided to go through homeschool. And so basically I went to homeschool from 7th grade through 12th grade in what's known as the Abeka Video Homeschool. I remember back in the day, right, I would take the VHS tapes and plug them in, and I would have lesson plans that they would send me, and I would just go through each one each day. My dad would come and stay with us every once in a while, help me through it, but for the most part, I would do each one of the lessons in those classes by myself, because my mom was working 40 hours plus a week at her job at a daycare. And so that really helped me to build on my education and learning and teaching myself along the way, and making sure I was organized and those sort of things. And so that was all an institutional framework as well, of going through these different educational systems and figuring out what works best for me, right? So those are all things that help me to build my worldview and my lens of how I see the world. And so that was, very interesting. You don't always see that happen with a lot of people. And so I feel blessed to have had those experiences as I was going through that. And then about, I guess it was 16, 17 years old, I started playing drums. Some of my friends, they wanted to start a rock band, and I was like, yeah, I want to do that too. So I got a drum set, took a couple lessons, and then started playing drums. And eventually, we ended up being one of the top hard rock bands in Houston. We played a song, our music sounded like Korn or Deftones or Tool back in the day, late 90s, early 2000s, and we were together for maybe 3 or 4 years. But it was pretty much a tumultuous time, to where, we don't have to get into all the details, but, when you think about, I call it the hard rock years, right, my rock star years, to where just things were not heading in the right direction, right? I kind of just went the wrong way, and basically my life was either heading towards being in locked up in prison or something like that, or maybe even dead. I mean, it really just was not heading in the right direction. And so that was a whole other institutional framework of being in that band and meeting a lot of people and touring and all those things, which was different than the homeschool situation that I was in at the time. And, I'd also started working right at the age of 16 to get my first car, things of that nature. So my hard work ethic was always been there as well, which is a whole other institutional framework that continued to build my lens of the way I see the world today. And so then I went through and kept doing all that, and then I went and I graduated from high school at 17. I took 2 years off, so as part of the rock star years, a lot of things that were going on at that time. I just wasn't ready for college, and so at 19 I started college at San Jacinto Junior College. Thought that would be a good step to go to a junior college. Plus, I think junior college is a great way to go anyway. It's cheaper, more affordable for a lot of people. You actually get the teacher, the instructor, professor in the classroom instead of maybe a teacher's aide at some of the larger universities. So I really enjoyed that. So I went there. First year was in 2001. And that was kind of an interesting time too, right? Because that was 9/11, my first semester, and just a lot of different things that were happening then at that point in time. And then after my first year in college, so this would be 2002, May 25th of 2002, I was heading back from a graduation party for one of my friends, and we were on a frontage road. Me and one of my best friends at the time, he had just got an Acura RSX 3 days prior to this, and we pulled up to a red light, and a Volkswagen Jetta pulled up next to us and started revving its engine, right? Like they were wanting to race. And us being young and stupid, I was 20 at the time, thought, you know what? Let's do it. And so my friend, he said, okay, let's race. And so there were two of his cousins that were in the back seat. We were both about 20. They were about maybe 14 or 15. And so we took off down the frontage road. The last time I really remember seeing the speedometer, we were going about 120 miles an hour down the frontage road, right? Well, a Suburban came off the exit ramp as we were going down the frontage road, and probably looked in the rearview mirror and saw us way back there, not knowing that we were going 120 miles per hour, right? And so when they turned right into our lane, and we're going to make a right-hand turn. Well, we couldn't swerve fast enough to miss them, so we hit the back end of the Suburban, kind of clipped it, right? Clipped the back left side of the Suburban, and when we clipped it, we turned and started rolling. From the people that were behind us, they said we rolled at least 6 times, maybe more, and then landed upside down and skidded probably about 40 yards. So that tells you the impact of what all had. I mean, I was knocked unconscious when we first hit just because of the speed that we were going and the amount of impact that happened. And as we were rolling, I do remember coming to, and my arm had fallen out the window. And so I remember pulling it back in right before we hit the cement again. And at that point, it had actually skidded off the top part of my pinky finger of my right hand, which is kind of crazy. I was knocked unconscious again. The next thing I know is that I came to, everybody else in the car, the other 3, had gotten out of the car already, right? And I guess maybe they thought I was dead, but I was out for at least a couple minutes. Came to, couldn't get out of the car. I was upside down, right? So it was very difficult to take off the seatbelt and everything. Finally got the seatbelt off, climbed out of the car, and just kind of remember looking around after I got out of the car, and everything was moving around. It was the first time I had ever been knocked unconscious. It was a crazy experience. I remember sitting there, and the paramedics got there quickly thereafter and said, hey, do your eyes always look kind of bugged out? I'm like, what are you talking about? I don't know what you're talking about. And they're like, yeah, they look kind of bugged out. And so from the way that the car looked and everything, they thought I may have another, a brain injury or something. So I was life-flighted to Herman Hospital in Houston with possible brain injuries. So of course my mind went back to my dad. I've seen him have so many seizures and have so many issues with epilepsy over the course of his life that I never really wanted to go through that same thing. And so throughout my whole time in the lifeline, flying, looking over, seeing the clouds as we were going by, I'm thinking, man, am I going to have a brain injury? I was asking the paramedic, am I going to die? I just really didn't know what was going to happen. And, I got to the hospital, my mom, everybody was there. And really by the grace of God, I was able to leave that night, right? I left that night after and was able to go home. And so there wasn't any major brain issues or anything, although I got a PhD in economics, so maybe that's a brain issue. But besides that, there wasn't anything wrong. But what happened after that was that then I had about a month to really think about and pray about like where my life was heading, because it was not heading in the right direction in a hurry. And so as I was praying and thinking, I had just taken my first economics course at that San Jacinto Junior College and really liked it. And during my praying and everything, I kind of felt compelled to help others. I felt like that was what my gift was. That's what God gave me, a second chance to really help people. And I thought, how can I do that best? Well, I really like this thing, economics, and it seemed to tell a lot about how the world works and how things don't work too, the unintended consequences part. And so I said, you know what? I think I'm going to keep doing that. And so instead of having my addictive personality focused on things that I shouldn't have been addicted to, I got addicted to learning and researching and really digging deeper into these big issues that goes on. And so I graduated from San Jacinto Junior College, went to Texas Tech University in 2003, got my bachelor's degree in 2006 in accounting and economics, and double minor in political science and mathematics. So I had about 180 hours at the end of my bachelor's degree. And then my mentor at the time was Dr. Ronald Gilbert. And he was like, hey, Vance, I really think that you should go on to get your PhD in economics and go to grad school and try that out. And being as a first generation college graduate, I was like, look, I've already got my associate's degree, got my bachelor's degree, I'm done, I'm ready to go work. But I felt compelled again to go ahead and do that, to learn more of the tools of economics, to be able to use those to hopefully help people, is where I felt like my gift was really headed in that direction. And so I did that, and went on, and so that was in 2006. A couple years later, in 2011 is whenever I interned first at the Texas Public Policy Foundation. I really got more interested into free markets, the classical liberal, libertarian sort of part of it, and so I joined the Koch Summer Fellowship Program and got involved with the Texas Public Policy Foundation. I was a policy analyst for their Armstrong Center for Energy and the Environment. It was a lot of my academic research was mainly on oil and gas prices in general and how they affect the economy, how the economy affects those prices, just how markets work overall. And so I really enjoyed that time. And so at that same time, I got a call from one of my friends at Sam Houston State University and said, hey, we've got a lecturer position available. Would you like to come work here? And I was like, yes, that'd be great. Because I really enjoyed teaching. I mean, I had taught basically from 2007 to 2011 at Texas Tech, so about 4 years. A lot of classes. I really enjoyed my time teaching there as a graduate part-time instructor. And so I really thought it'd be great to go and be a lecturer, and so I did. I went over to Sam Houston, taught there from 2011 to 2013, and really continued to hone my skills on teaching and learning more about economics in the process, and finishing up my dissertation. And so I finished my dissertation in 2013 and graduated. Went to the whole academic market. I actually went to the academic market 3 years in a row because I thought that I was going to graduate some of those times, and didn't end up happening with some changes in my dissertation committee and just some other things that came on. Life gets in the way. But then so I had this other job offer, and so I went to a couple of flights out and really thought, I wanted to be in the academic community. But then, I started thinking about it. What do I really want to do? If I want to go back to helping others, I want to have more of an effect now, and maybe not sometime in the future, or waiting too long into the future, I should say. And so I had already written a couple of academic papers, had been published in academic journals. So I mean, you publish or perish thing really wouldn't have been a huge issue. I could publish, but the problem is that in order for people to really read your work, you really need to be published in one of the top academic papers or journals, I should say. And so I'm not sure that was necessarily going to be the case for me. And so, how many people would actually read my work? After all the time and effort I put into it, and then not having an effect, that just really wasn't the direction that I felt I needed to go. I think that that's a great direction for many people. I love the teaching, I love the research, but why would I want to wait so long? And so since I had done that internship at the Texas Public Policy Foundation, I was like, you know what, that's really where I want to be. I wanted to be in the policy world and be able to have an effect and go talk to legislators and things of that nature. And so a position came available with the Center for Fiscal Policy. And so I started working with Talmadge Heflin, who had served for 22 years in the Texas House of Representatives. The last 2 years, he was the chair of Appropriations Committee. And so I really learned a lot from him over a long period of time. And it was interesting, though, because in that 2011 time period where all this stuff was going on, right before I started that Koch Summer Fellowship Program, kind of got one of those calls that forever changes you as a person. I had just judged what's it called, like a competition of research papers by undergraduates, and I've just gotten on the bus to go to my truck, and I got a call from my mom, and my mom said, because at the time my dad was living with my sister in Houston, and my mom called me and she said, Vance, your dad's not breathing. I was like, what? Okay. Well, call the paramedics, have them come over and tell them and have them look at him. She's like, no, Vance, he's not breathing, he's dead. I just remember like my heart sank. Like it was the biggest hit that I really taken overall to know that, because the previous 2.5 years before that, he had actually came and lived up in Lubbock by me and now my now wife, Emily. And so I had gotten close to him. We hadn't lived together for a lot of my life as my parents were separated. And so having him come and live there, we really got really close. We were like best friends. We would talk all the time and all those things. And so he had just moved to Houston 4 months prior to this phone call. And knowing that he had died just kind of changed everything in a lot of ways, changed my lens, changed the institutions that I was in. And he had died from what's called SUDEP, sudden unexpected death in epilepsy. It's something that I like to share with people. I still continue to be a part of the Epilepsy Foundation as a volunteer there to provide more information. I mean, I'm telling you now about SUDEP. Hopefully you'll go and check it out as well. But my dad was an amazing man. He was one that didn't complain about the situation that he was in. He couldn't work, he couldn't drive, he couldn't do a lot of things because of his disability. But he didn't let that keep him from having a happy life, right? And prospering. That's why prospering is not just about having a lot of money. It's also about just enjoying life and being where you are in life and prospering and flourishing overall. And so that was really a change in who I was and what I wanted to do. So that was in that 2011. So 2013, I started the Texas Public Policy Foundation, get a lot of things going, continue to work in that area. I also got married in 2011, so there's a lot of stuff that happened in that period. And so my first child, Bryson Wayne, was born in 2014. So he's about to be 4 actually later this month. And then my second son, Cooper Thomas, was born last October. And so he's about 9 months old now. So those two are kind of my joy. This is where this picture is back here, talking about just how dads continue to focus. And so my dad helped me in so many ways, even though he couldn't remember a lot of stuff from his amnesia and short-term memory loss. I try to be there as much as I can for my kids. And so all of this really helps to set the stage for the institutional foundation that kind of makes me the man that I am today. So I want to help people. I want to use my tools and knowledge of economics and other things and continue to learn more and more from other people and everyone around us as we continue to try to make things better off for people, right? Where they they're more self-reliant and responsible for their own actions. It's one of the reasons why I consider myself to be a classical liberal, right? I think that there are roles for government. I'm not an anarchist or an anarcho-capitalist, but I do want very limited government in general, to where, going back to even Adam Smith, where he talked about national defense, upholding contracts, maybe very few public goods, maybe he might have a couple public roads, or it could be even a role for public education. I think it should be very limited compared to what it is today. But other than that, there's very few other things that the federal government for sure should be involved with, much less the state and local governments. And so, I think that having people be able to make more choices on their own to satisfy their own desires within these institutions and having the scarce resources around us, that's what makes economics, human action and interaction of us all, right? And being able to flourish and prosper gives us these ideas. And so when you see these cycles that happen through each and every one of our lives, and I just went through mine of starting off in a very relatively low-income household, going through different institutions, private school, public school, homeschool, going to junior college, having a dad who had epilepsy, having a mom who worked at daycares, and having a family, going through a major car accident that kind of set me back, but kind of redirected me to where my life was going to then head in the right direction, to where I can help people and make this world hopefully a little bit better place along the way. There's just so many things that I want to be able to learn and do and continue to work on, and that's why I started this. I guess you call it a video blog, where I'm just going to continue to expand on key issues that affect the nation, that affect Texas, that affect maybe even local governments, and I hope to continue this for a while as we continue to grow together. And I mean, if you have ideas too, please comment on my blog page at vanceginn.com. Maybe you could ask, hey, what about this issue? And I'll try to do my best to write it to talk about that as well. But I'm really hoping that this continue to take off. I just really appreciate you for watching these and continue to watch these. I hope we continue to grow together. I'm thankful for my family. I'm thankful for my friends. Those things come first, and first and foremost comes God. I just praise God every day for the blessings that I've been able to have, and for the grace and sacrifice of Jesus Christ, for making things happen along the way. I wouldn't be the man that I am today. Not at all. And so these are all things that I'm hopeful that many of us will be grateful for and continue to be blessed and continue to move forward each and every day as we try to make the world a little bit better place than it was before. And so again, thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed learning a little bit more about me. We've got a lot more things to cover, so I don't want to take up too much more time about me, because this is really about a lot of the issues that we want to deal with. But I did want you to let you know a little bit more about me and where I'm coming from and what I hope to continue to do with this vlog. So thanks again. Have a prosperous day. Talk to you soon.